So close to finished, we're going to do the triple blanket stitch. So we're on step 12. I am going to back you up to step 11C, which I managed not to video in the previous one. So once you have prepared your background oval, you've applied your cotton or whatever you've chosen, flannel or homespun for the backing. I want you to harken back all the way to step 2 where we created the original shape, and I had you fray block the perimeter of the either wool or flannel that was in your kit. Now we've added the cotton element, and I want you to again come back with the fray block, please, and just very gently fray block the perimeter of that. So we've created a situation where neither of those two can fray. Again, I've included a Notions fact sheet that I wrote about the fray block, so I'm going to ask you to be sure and refer to that if you didn't the first time. Okay, so we're going to create no knot beginning and ending. And again, remember, I've shrunk this way down. You're imagining that I have stitched it and my pumpkin is right here. Again, I like to look at it like it's a clock. I know it's an oval, but 12 o'clock would be here, 6 is here, this would be my 3, and this would be my 9. Somewhere around 7 over here, 7 and 8, that's where I want to start, and I'm doing that to trying to be logical and trick your eye a little bit. We read from left to right, so your eye is going to start here on the work and it's going to go there really fast. So this is a great area to stop and start something, the beginning of it, and then as we stitch around the end of it, where it's not going to be a focal point because it's ended over here where your eye ends each time you look at the work. And that's my logic for that. On the back side, I'm going to do my very best to run the needle literally between my backing, which in this case is the cotton little floral, and the flannel. So you can't see my needle barrel here, and you cannot see my needle barrel there. It's between those two layers. And I'm going to run that up. And the answer is yes, that temporarily leaves my knot on the wrong side, on the outside. Don't worry about it yet. We're going to handle that at the very end. And then I'm going to do the triple blanket stitch. And again, you're forming the blanket stitch. You're just doing 3 where normally we would have done 1. So I'm going to go from left to right, or from right to left, because I'm technically right-handed. If you were left-handed, you would be stitching clockwise, which would be from left to right, but I'm going to go right to left. The way I want you to stitch this is I actually want you to make a partial stitch for our starting. Let me make sure I'm in there. Make a partial stitch for our starting. And that means we're only going to do 2 of the 3 stitches, and then when we join it, we'll put the 3rd one to it. So come about 1/4 of an inch away, let's say a scant 1/4 of an inch away. This is where I came out, right at the perimeter of my work. And I'm going to come a scant 1/4 of an inch away, a scant 1/4 of an inch down, and I'm going to go through both layers, and I'm going to come up inside my circle and pull my first stitch. So although this is the first stitch of our starting, it's actually stitch number 2 in our work. So don't let that confuse you. Let's just get past the start, and then we'll get into the triple blanket stitch. My next stitch, I'm going to put very close by. I don't want you to go in the same hole and overlap them, and I don't want you to go a whole bunch away, but maybe 1 or 2 woven threads of either your flannel or your wool come in right next to that. And again, I want them to look like they're connected, but I don't need to split that stitch in case you have to take something out. My second stitch is actually going to lean to my left. And notice how I've got a little V, or actually it's more like a triangle because it's closed. So I've got it meeting down here, and I've got my perimeter there. So that's our first stitch, and again, it's missing its 3rd part, and it's going to get that when we get it back around to the beginning. I'm going to make my next stitch, so come across the perimeter of your work about 1/4 of an inch in that same, or down that same 1/4 of an inch for the first leg. I'm going to go in and up, and instead of making that my straight stitch, I'm pulling that one to the right. Don't pull it so hard that it leans forward, but pull it hard enough that you actually literally see, a teepee right here formed, or a V. And then I'm going to form my next stitch, so I'm going right next to it. in and up. I want this one to be straight. So I have an angle to the right, I have a straight one, I have an angle to the left. So that's my second stitch for that one. And then my third one right close by. Make sure you can see that. And then I'm in and up. All right, so there's my triple blanket stitch. It covers more. I like it on a big project. You might have seen it professionally done by machine on a wool blanket or a fleece blanket. Sometimes maybe they use it to do a rug or whatever, but that's what it is. Now, don't say, gosh, I hate that, it shows too much. You need to remember that I'm using gold thread so that you can see it, but your pearl cotton, the 930 DMC, is going to blend right in and it'll look beautiful. So that's my first triple blanket stitch. Let's do it again. So again, I'm coming about 1/4 of an inch away, scant 1/4 of an inch away into my work about 1/4 of an inch. My very first stitch, I want to lean right. My second stitch, I want to be straight. My third stitch, I want to lean left. And this right, left, center thing, you're controlling that, you know. I'm putting it in the center, I'm putting it and leaning it right, I'm putting it in and leaning it left. And I'm going to repeat that again. So I'm going to come in over about 1/4 of an inch from the perimeter, down in a scant 1/4 of an inch roughly. I'm going to make my stitch. This is stitch 1. I'm going to lean it right. Notice how I'm pulling the thread off to the right gently. Second stitch, I'm going to make straight. Third stitch, I'm going to lean left. Now I'm also working with a really short thread here on purpose because I want to show you, I've showed you how to begin, right? Now I want to show you how to end. So I've run out of a thread. You know, it's maybe about 3 inches left. Don't go shorter than that. It's going to be too hard to handle. So what I'm going to do is, in order to lock that stitch in place, I need to go to the back. I don't need to go back inside here. If I do that, my stitch will undo. But I need to go over it. I need to jump to the back, and I'm not going to literally turn it. And to the very best of my ability, I'm going to, again, try to sneak between my 2 layers, between the cotton layer and the flannel or wool layer. And I'm going to try to go in about, you know, if you can do a 1/2 inch, awesome. If it doesn't work, you know, go in about 1/4 of an inch. Whatever will work. We're trying not to, and it's showing right there. I think you can see my needle shows right there. So I missed it. I'm going to try again. I've pulled my stitch a little straight, so I'm going to loosen that baby back up and kind of coax him off to the edge a little, off at an angle. Almost got it. Almost got it. So I'm going to look at it again. Can't see the barrel of my needle from the front. It's hiding under the cotton on the back. That's what I want. I'm going to pull that in. Now there it is. How do I finish that? Well, you can tie another knot there, but honestly, what I do, I started with a knot, so I didn't pull it out when I started. But when I finish it off, I come to the back and then I go in right next to it and try to channel under the cotton one way. So there I went to the left. It's showing a little bit, but again, you're going to be on that blue thread and it's not going to show. And then I try to go just about thread away of where I just went, and then I go back to the right. So I went left, then I went right, making sure none of that shows on the front. Again, my gold threads show a little bit there, but that's okay. Your blue ones aren't going to. And then I literally clip that pretty close, as well, at least as close as you can get. So I would start with a knot, but end with no knot by weaving it underneath. And then I've got another thread started, so I'm going to start again just so that you kind of get the idea. And the start again is very similar to what we did when we started the entire thing. So again, I'm going to try to come, you know, 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch away. And I'm going to try to weave between my backing and my top so that you can't see the barrel of the needle. I'm going to leave that knot behind. Don't pull it super tight, but pull it, enough that it's not going to move on you. I'm going to make sure that I came up, so I'm going to use my needle right here, between that last thread, because I don't want that to show like it's coming up out of nowhere. All right, so I've just kind of come where I would my thread would normally be had I not stopped it. Now these two stitches got a little wonky on me, but I believe I can go back in and just kind of coax it over and then it'll cooperate there. See, I just fixed it. Okay, so then I'm just going to put it on repeat again. So I'm going to come over about 1/4 of an inch, down about 1/4 of an inch, make my first stitch. Again, I'm stitching to counterclockwise, so my first stitch needs to lean right. My second stitch needs to lean straight or be straight, up and down, makes a V. And my third stitch needs to lean left. And you're just going to put that on repeat till you go all the way around. What I'll have to do is finish stitching this so that I can show you how to end and connect there. But honestly, it's very similar to what we just did there when we restarted with new thread. So I'm going to come back around to that in just a few minutes. So Joanna will splice those two videos for us. And again, we're on step 12, triple blanket stitch, finishing your mat perimeter. And there's just a little bit more to go.